But we might as well, right? Oh, I forgot I had that clip loaded up, but that was funny. We might as well play, right? The Kramer clip. Um, it is a good song, isn't it, Carlin? I love that song. And it's become much more meaningful. I got that theme song way before all the bad crap happened to me. By the way, everyone loves to see my shirt. Send me your affiliate shirts, because you guys know I wear them. I got the delco.org here. Only two things matter in Delco: Wawa and freedom. So yeah, send me your affiliate shirts. I'll wear them. You know, I'm a connoisseur. Yeah, Chuck. I know Chuck knows Wawa. I'm a connoisseur of t-shirts, and I see Doc Sexy is in the house. Anyway, so yes, today we're going to talk about something completely boring and non-controversial. But I wanted to get this kind of stuff over with. Everyone's probably going to hate me after the show, and that's probably a good thing. It means I'm on the right track. Some people are going to be very surprised because they haven't paid close attention to the things I've been saying recently. So, yes, it was finally done. The abortion plank has been deleted from the platform. Most people know I've written a very, very popular article on Independent Political Report, IPR, called Abortion and the Libertarian Conscience, in which I argued very strongly to delete the abortion plank. I wrote that article when I was only in the party for 9 months. I still think it's a very well-written article. However, I no longer support the deletion of the abortion plank. I changed my mind on that about 1.5 years, 2 years ago. I didn't make a big deal out of it because it didn't really matter. Honestly, no matter what our platform says, people are going to argue about it. But just for the record, now that I'm not platform committee chair and I'm free to speak my mind, if you go and watch the video, I think the camera was right on stage, you will see I did not vote for that. I also didn't vote for it in 2020 either. I threw out my tokens. I will be throwing out my tokens every year until the token system changes. That's different. That's different from my position on the abortion plank. Now people go, oh, are you no longer pro-life? Are you now pro-choice? No, I'm as pro-life as ever. But I think the words pro-life and pro-choice mean something different in a libertarian context. I'm going to turn this heater off because I think it's a little loud. If you happen to be able to pick up the there's a 50th anniversary book of John Hosper's seminal work, The Libertarianism and New Political Philosophy for Tomorrow. I wrote 2 chapters in that book. Kind of never really got much attention. One on party history and one on how to argue abortion like a libertarian. Because I don't think many libertarians argue abortion like libertarians. They argue them like Republicans and Democrats. And it drives me crazy because both sides do it. We're going to get into that a little bit because there's only so much we can say about the plank. I'm going to tell you my reasons for opposing its deletion. So anyone who's going to be claiming that the Mises Caucus all walked in lockstep, they were aware I did not support the deletion, but they were also aware I wasn't going to debate it with them because I recused myself from all platform discussions, be they tokens or whatever. I left all of those meetings because I was platform committee chair and I wanted to I guarded my impartiality during my tenure very zealously. But now that my tenure is over in that position, I feel I can speak freely. I could tell you why I opposed deleting it. Because that was an issue that really troubled me when I came into this party. When I was nominally a Republican, I very much was a single issue voter when I did vote, which was rarely. You know, I was an abortion voter. I was one of those people. I've been on both sides of the issue. When in my youth, I used to be very, very stridently pro-choice. I used to be an abortion clinic defender. I helped escort women through the protest lines to get abortions. Then when I became a Christian, I changed my mind. Now, if I were to become an atheist tomorrow, I still wouldn't change my mind. Originally, my mind was changed a lot for religious reasons, but that is not my reasons now. I know sometimes the simplest things can make you change your mind on an issue. I can tell you that something really stupid caused me to rethink my position on abortion when I was pro-choice. And I'm sure some pro-choice people will scoff at me and say, no, it was just Jesus, whatever. I don't care what you think. My mind is my own. But I was doing abortion clinic defense in Florida, and a guy walked by with a t-shirt that on the back of it said, as a former fetus, I object to abortion. And that t-shirt actually made me think about it more than I ever had. And I was one of those super radical. I probably still have the t-shirt. That day, I was wearing a t-shirt that said abortion on demand and without apology. Some of you may have seen those shirts. I used to write op-eds. I was really a very zealous card-carrying. I met Patricia Ireland, now member, that was very much in support of abortion. I slowly changed my mind to be pro-life, and then I ended up on the other side of the picket lines. So I've been on both sides of the picket lines at abortion clinics. I also have made no secret. I've done storytime live streams about this. I've had 2 abortions myself. And I'm not going to be one of those people who will say that immediately afterwards I regretted it, because I didn't. I think that argument saying to women, oh, you're going to regret it immediately, it doesn't work, because most women, I'm not even going to say most, a lot of women don't feel that way. I can tell you after my second abortion, the only feeling I felt was relief. I'm not going to lie and make myself out to be a saint. You know, I'm just telling you my life story. However, the first abortion I had, I was actually medically abused by a Planned Parenthood doctor. I was only 18 years old, barely 18. I wish I knew better. I wish I sued the living hell out of them for malpractice, because I was a very poor, barely 18-year-old girl in trouble. I went there because they were cheap. I didn't know at the time that I have really terrible internal pain issues, like we don't even want to get into it, tilted uterus, the whole thing. But something that should have been relatively, I mean, it's not a walk in the park to get an abortion, but for me, it's agonizing. So in mid-procedure at a Planned Parenthood, the doctor started screaming at me, do you want me to stop? Do you want this thing half in you? Do you want it to rot in you? Like just the most horrible things you ever could imagine. Then he went out in the waiting room and extorted my mother for more money. That happened to me at a Planned Parenthood abortion mill. However, I'm not going to lie, the second abortion I had was at an entirely different place. We paid more money, and those people were nothing but loving. So I'm not going to pretend like all abortions are bad experiences either. I had both a bad experience and a good experience. I don't need to make up stories to prove my point, but I'm just giving you a little bit of my background that some people may not have known. When I was 18 and I was 21, I think is when I had my 2 abortions. I became a Christian at the age of 29, and that's when I changed my mind on the issue. And it used to be a religious position. Now it's an ethical position. It's not just a religious position. But anyway, I remain pro-life. However, I never was in favor of laws. Maybe in the very beginning when I was zealously pro-life, I was. But for most of the time when I've been pro-life, I've never been in favor of the government being involved. So, but when I joined the party, I had a big problem with the plank, probably because of a lot of guilt that I felt later about my 2 abortions, but I didn't feel guilt at the time. I'm not going to lie and say I did. I did many years later. Many years later, I had a lot of guilt about it. But so the plank was a big issue for me when I joined the party. I really had a lot of problems with that plank. And I felt that the plank was a pro-choice plank. But over the years of really pondering it and talking to a lot of people about this, I don't think it was a pro-choice plank. And I know a lot of people in comments are going to disagree with me. And I am just asking, I'm just asking everyone here to hear me. And perhaps one day you'll see my point of view on it, because you know that I'm pro-life. I believe that in nearly every single case, abortion is the unjust taking of a human life. But I was still in favor of the plank. Why? The government is not the answer to everything. The government cannot right every single wrong that happens. And in order for the government to solve that issue, it would cause more rights violations than the rights violations it is trying to solve. Because if you're going to be consistent and say the government needs to intrude upon this, then every woman who has a miscarriage should be investigated for potential murder. And if you're not willing to go that far, you're not taking your position seriously. And I was not willing to go that far. I'm not going to put women through that. And also, as a libertarian, I don't believe that women who are raped should be forced to carry pregnancies to term. Yes, I know that's rare. Yes, I know that's rare. But we're individualists, aren't we? Don't we say it's better that 100 guilty people go free rather than one innocent person gets locked up? So why wouldn't we say the same about abortion? You can't sacrifice one person's rights in order to save 100 other people's rights. And in a libertarian point of view, someone who is raped should not be forced to carry an infant that they do not want. To me, the whole abortion issue is a torts issue. Maybe that comes from my legal background. But anyway, I just wanted to say that I wasn't in favor of deleting the plank because I became convinced it wasn't actually a pro-choice plank. The problem is that as libertarians, we've bought into the terminology of the right and the left, and we think pro-life means that you want the government to make abortion illegal. And pro-choice means that you want the government to keep it legal. To me, pro-choice and pro-life don't mean that. Not all crimes are tort issues, Matthew. I'm sorry, that's not correct. Tort is a civil thing, not a criminal thing. No crimes are, I'm not even going to get into it. Torts is civil, at least to my understanding. But anyway, it doesn't really matter to my argument. But we can look that up because I normally work in contract law. Let's look that up because I don't want to say something incorrect. So let's look up the definition of a tort. I'm fairly certain that tort is civil law. Are torts crimes? Let's see, because I could be wrong. Yep, it says torts are distinguishable from crimes. Tort law addresses private wrongs, and it's civil. I was correct. Torts have nothing to do with crimes. Torts is civil law, not criminal law. I'd have been really embarrassed as a paralegal to get that wrong. But again, I don't work in that area of law. I work with insurance policies. But the plank really wasn't pro-choice. Because you want to know what is central to a pro-choice view? What is central to a pro-choice view is that you have a right to an abortion. That it's a civil right that you have. Our plank never said that. Our plank said nothing about rights. And in fact, our plank was completely agnostic on the issue of rights. It said you can have a good faith view on either side of the issue. We just don't think the government should be involved. I actually think our abortion plank was pretty damn near perfect. That's where I've landed on this issue as an intensely pro-life person. That's where I landed on it. I don't want the government involved in it. And I said in a prior stream that I think, well, Tyler, as I said, everyone's going to hate me after this show. But if people, are going to divide based upon this difference of opinion, they're just going to have to do that. You are assuming what you intend to prove. I do not find arguments from a pro-choice or a pro-life argument. Let me tell you the arguments I don't find, and I encourage every single one of you to read the chapter in the book that I wrote. In fact, if I can pull up Patreon here, I think I'm going to read this article because again, my frustration with libertarians is you're not arguing like libertarians. You're arguing like Republicans and Democrats. One second here. Let me find. And I'm going to disagree with you, Kelly. I think abortion can be murder. But I think you have to go through multiple steps to get there. You can't simply argue that the fetus is a rights-bearing human being. I agree with that. Let me find my posts here. Published. I published this article on my Patreon only. But again, you can, if you buy the book, where did I put it? Patrons only. Crap, when did this book came out? I thought it came out in October. Didn't I post it? You guys for my Patreon. Yeah, right here. Okay, let me pull up. Why can't I read my own post? Okay, I'm on my own Patreon, and I can't read my own post. Hold on a second here. Okay, here it goes. So we're going to go through this book. I mean, this chapter I wrote in the book. It's really short. It's more of an essay. And the title of my essay, and I only have 25 more minutes, by the way, because I'm going on another show in a few minutes. But one other pragmatic reason why I opposed the deletion of the plank. Do you think this vacuum is going to remain? Do you think we're going to remain silent on this issue? If you do, you're nuts. All that's going to happen is now the party is going to battle every single year over whether we're going to have a super actually pro-choice plank or whether we're going to have a pro-life plank. Welcome to the great abortion wars, everybody. I don't want that. Whether or not you liked the plank, it was a piece that has held in this party since 2008. And now that piece has been shattered. And every single platform committee is going to be arguing about this issue. And I can tell you, I don't want that for this party. Pragmatically, that plank held us together. So now I'm going to go through my essay. The title of my essay is, It hadn't happened every year, though, Diana. I've been platform committee chair for 3 years, and the platform committee never touched the abortion plank. It didn't happen. That's just contrafactual. I was platform committee chair. We avoided it like a nitroglycerin bomb. So the title of my essay is An Essentially Libertarian View of Abortion is Neither Conservative nor Progressive. It says, despite the rhetoric from the extreme poles of this debate, there is no clear-cut answer on abortion. And for most of the cases, it will always lie in the land of morality. Libertarianism does not deal in broad morality. It deals in a then-intersected subset of morality, justice. That being said, however, there are clear guidelines for the libertarian to come to his or her own position, and it differs radically from the ones held by conservative and progressive viewpoints. Since there are presently so few second-generation libertarians, most of us have come from either the progressive left or the conservative right. But the values of that dichotomy do not translate well into this issue for an essentially libertarian argument. The progressive leftist concentrates on the bodily autonomy of the woman, and the conservative rightist on the humanity of the fetus. A libertarian can equally concede both sides without coming anywhere remotely close to a libertarian answer. Both sides admit that the involved woman is a fully autonomous, rights-bearing individual. Unfortunately, though, some libertarians will try to argue, using progressive talking points, that the fetus is not a person. I believe that does great damage to a coherent theory of human rights. An essentially libertarian view can and should accept both of these premises. However, contrary to the conservative assertion, the full personhood of the fetus does not necessarily lead to a position of abortion prohibition, nor does it prove that abortion is murder. So let's examine this issue, talking about these two premises as a given. Premise number 1, the mother is a fully autonomous human being over her own body. And premise number 2, the fetus is a fully rights-bearing human being with a right to life in light of the conservative and progressive arguments. And then my next subtitle, Against a Libertarian Position Using Progressive Talking Points. Such a libertarian will argue that a fetus is akin to a parasite and that no person can be forced to sustain the life of another. While this is generally true, it is not absolutely true. In what other situations might one be forced to provide support for the life of another person? How about when one person is the cause of placing another person in a dependent position without their consent? The whole field of tort law rests on such a premise. If someone negligently harms another, that victim is entitled to damages. This is so essential to a libertarian view of justice that it cannot be denied without destroying the entire system. Now my next subtitle, Against a Libertarian Position Using Conservative Talking Points. A libertarian relying upon typically conservative points will cry, but it's an innocent life. You cannot take an innocent life or it's murder. But is that precisely true? If a gunman is trying to unjustly murder you and takes a human shield in the process, and the only way you can live is to fire back, possibly killing the human shield, are you required to meekly die for that person? You didn't place that third party in that position. That death is caused by the gunman, no matter who fires the fatal bullet. The thought experiment of the famous violinist is also apropos, which in short postulates that one day you find yourself hooked up to a famous violinist who is completely innocent of any aggression against you, nor you against him, and he needs a constant blood transfusion from you in order to live due to a temporary but fatal disorder. Neither you nor the violinist asked for this to be done, but here you both are, and if you disconnect him, he will die. Are you obligated in a libertarian theory of justice to sustain his life? No, you're not. Thus, the idea that the taking of an innocent human life immediately entails murder is defeated. So what might we draw from these arguments? A libertarian argument for or against abortion must rely on elements very similar to a case of tort and not contract law, as others have claimed. Element number 1, responsibility. Except in cases of sexual coercion or an inability to consent, the woman and her sexual partner are directly responsible for the helpless position of the fetus. If there is coercion or inability to consent, the abortion question is answered. No matter how tragic, the woman has no obligation to sustain the life of the fetus and can justly abort. Whether she should morally do so is not within the purview of libertarianism. Element number 2, mitigation. Assuming a competent woman in a consensual sexual experience, is she automatically on the hook to carry a pregnancy to term? No. Everything in life has risks, and considering how essential sexuality is to the fundamental human experience, it is simply out of the question to insist people should not have sex unless they are willing to become parents whether they want to or not. That is as nonsensical as saying you cannot own a gun unless you're 100% ready to be convicted of murder in every case in which your weapon is the cause of another's death in a freak accident or other unintended and non-negligent mishap. When dealing with risk, we have a duty to mitigate. If you fire a gun into a building, you have an obligation to reasonably make sure the building is empty. The key word is reasonably. You cannot be expected to be charged as a murderer if you did not know or should have known there was a secret tunnel into the abandoned building, that someone was exiting in the exact area and at the exact time you fired at your target. Could that happen? Sure. But we owe only reasonable duty. So what about a woman who faithfully takes reliable birth control pursuant to the instructions so that it typically has an over 99% effective rate but gets pregnant anyway? Is she culpable? She did everything she could reasonably do to prevent pregnancy, and it happened anyway against her wishes. I would be hard-pressed to make a libertarian case that she could be forced to carry to term lest she be a murderer. Very few cases are that clear-cut. But where is the line drawn? That is where the difficult work of libertarian jurisprudence is done, and it is very situation dependent. The extent of alienability of bodily freedom is also entailed. Most libertarians acknowledge that specific performance is not a valid remedy for negligence, nor in the related area of contract law. And then I end. But should we even go there? Let me lay my cards on the table. I believe abortion is an evil, except in cases of sexual coercion or incompetence. And even in those cases, unless the life of the mother is in danger, I believe the right thing to do is to choose life, though it cannot be required by strict justice. However, I do not believe that the government is in any position to make these determinations. The intrusion into the most private details of life and sexuality would cause rights violations on such a large scale that the cure would be worse than the disease and would necessitate that each miscarriage be a potential murder investigation. I don't want to live in that world, and I worry for you if you do. Not every wrong has a right, and justice cannot victimize people who have done nothing wrong for the sake of innocent others. But whether you do not presume that asserting the autonomy of the woman or the humanity of the fetus answers the abortion question, because as a libertarian, neither presumption does. And I stand by every single word of that essay. And I hope people here at least opened your heart for a tiny bit to hear the points I was making. So, just wanted to get on the record that I did not support the deletion of that plank. I don't hate those of you who did. I just think be careful what you wish for, because I don't think you're going to like the way the party looks in a few years. I don't think you're going to like the wars that come from this. Was it a perfect plank? No. But what's going to happen after its deletion is going to be far worse. So that's my position. I think I probably pissed everybody off, and that's okay. But one thing, please, for the love of Rothbard, Start arguing like a libertarian and stop arguing like a Republican and a Democrat, because you're libertarians. You're not Republicans and Democrats. So that is my take. Hold on. That's my take on the issue. So we'll see where we go. I was kind of joking, Doc Sexy. I think some people probably weren't upset, but I think a lot of people will be surprised, because if you talk to Carol Moore, apparently, like, you know, whatever.
Objection, speculative.
I know, Dan. Everything's objection speculative. So I encourage everyone to pick up that book, but I'll probably publish that essay maybe on Substack or something, because I do think it's important that we start really carefully thinking about our arguments, because we're not going to convince people with the Republican-Democrat talking points. We're supposed to be much more thoughtful, aren't we, as libertarians? So that's my encouragement, you know, but I remain as pro-life as ever. I just don't want the government involved. And that's been my position for a very, very, very long time. It's also my husband's position, who is also pro-life. So we can argue another day, I suppose. There's a few minutes left. I did say that I think inadvertently, you guys who wanted to delete the plank, I think you inadvertently passed a plank that arguably is more pro-choice than the one you deleted. And a couple other historical facts I wanted to bring up for you guys. I'm going to get rid of this widget. Now we're just going to do history. I'm not trying to make an argument with history. I'm just trying to tell it to you. Excuse me. A lot of people will say, this party was pro-choice from day one. And when they mean that, they mean no abortion laws. Wrong. We were not. I'm not using that to argue one way or another. Now it's the historian talking. It's just like I was talking about the bigotry plank, how that has not been in the plank in the party for 50 years. It's not been in our platform for longer than it has been. But I want to show you our original platform on abortion. One second. Let me pull up the 1972 platform. Let me share my screen. Okay, here's the 1972 platform. Let's do a search. I think the word 100. No, maybe it's 100. Okay, right here. For one thing, we bought into the overpopulation scare in our original platform. Remember that, what was it, Silent Spring, that book that came out that was like the overpopulation scare? We bought into that crap in the early party. But here's the 1972 platform. We support an end to all subsidies for childbearing built into our present laws, including all welfare plans and the provision of tax-supported services for children. We further support the repeal of all laws restricting voluntary birth control or voluntary termination of pregnancy during their first 100 days. We used to only support abortion in the first 100 days. That is the party's original position. This is our 1972 platform. Within a few months after this, Roe versus Wade was passed, so that our 1974 platform then was much stronger. Let's see what it read in 1980, because you can see the evolution. We oppose financing abortion. Okay. I wonder if we called it termination, because I know we talked about it right here. Under population, once again, we support the repeal of all laws restricting voluntary birth control or the right of the woman to make a personal moral choice regarding termination of pregnancy. So the plank started getting stronger, stronger, and stronger. Let's look at 2000. I don't know if they still use the word termination instead of abortion. I think we used we use the word abortion, I think, in... Yep, we use the word... But here's what's funny. In 2000, we opposed using RICO laws against anti-abortion protesters, which is really interesting because I agree with that. RICO was never meant for that. But here is our 2000 plank on abortion. And you can see this is where that language creeped in. Recognizing that abortion is a very sensitive issue and that people, including libertarians, can hold good faith views on both sides, we believe the government should be kept out of the question. But here's what's super interesting. We condemn state-funded and state-mandated abortions. It is particularly harsh to force someone who believes that abortion is murder to pay for another's abortion. That's a very interesting that is in there, isn't it? Now I want to go to the current plank where I think we inadvertently, because the platform committee certainly didn't intend this, but I do think it is a reasonable interpretation under healthcare. We oppose governments either mandating or restricting voluntary access to medical treatments or procedures, including vaccines. Now, we were primarily focusing on vaccines here. But if you consider abortion a medical treatment, this plank is stronger than the last one. So, just wanted to bring that up. But people had been asking, excuse me, I don't want to do Filmora here. People had been asking, I'm going to stick back on the screen here for the last few minutes because now I'm going to another show. People had been asking my view on the issue. Now you know my view. I've changed my view on the deletion of the plank. I didn't vote for it, but I haven't changed my view on the nature of abortion. But I don't want to use the government to, I don't want to use the government to force you into my view. I believe abortion's a cultural issue at this point, that you cannot make laws that culture is not ready for. And I still do believe, and I know a lot of people in this party disagree with me, other pro-lifers, I don't think that overturning Roe versus Wade is going to be good for the pro-life movement. I think it's actually going to be one of the worst things that happen. It's going to cause a backlash. But we shall see. We shall see. I'd been saying that for a long time. All right, everyone. I hope you have an awesome night. Along the bottom is my grifting. So we're getting out of campaign. Well, we're way out of campaign mode. I hope you've been watching the LNC list. You can see already we are not an echo chamber. We are already having disagreements with each other. They are in good faith. They are in good faith, but we're not going to be an echo chamber. Anyone who thought it was going to be, they just don't know libertarians well enough, whether we're in the same caucus or not. It is not going to be an echo chamber. The Southern Poverty Law Center resolution is not going to pass. I'm in the minority on that. I guess I just need to be used to being in the minority no matter what LNC I'm on. But anyway, I hope you're watching the list. Things have been going extremely well. I believe I'm going on Swamp Creatures next to talk about the Reno reset. But what I was trying to say is along the bottom there, now that we're out of campaign mode, and I agree with you, Bren, I do think abortion goes under tort law, different than contract, but along the same lines. Yeah, so I'm back in just my normal grifting mode. If you enjoy this type of content, which is different than you're getting anywhere else, please consider becoming a patron. I am now back on the job trail, but my goals have not changed. I do want to transition over time to do Liberty work more full-time or at least part-time. Maybe part-time in the secular is not the right word, the normie world, and then do liberty activism. We shall see. So if you'd like to help me with that, you have my Patreon. But in any event, I've got some interviews set up for next week. So hopefully I will be back amongst the ranks of the gainfully employed. But until then, and tune into Swamp Creatures right after this, 4 minutes, going on that show. Love y'all. Bye-bye.
Gotta take what you're given, that's how we live it. Don't be mad at the system, it's simply how we've existed. I hear a lot of people talking like they politicians and choose to be an accountant because it's safe in the business.